there's a small percentage of people that have gone through a process, overnight successes, right? But they've spent 20 years of pain and failures and things that have happened. And I think you only grow out of those parts, because if you're successful right away, like, you don't understand what was broken. Like, if you're a true entrepreneur, you're always trying to put yourself out of business. You're waking up every morning and saying, who's going to put me out of business? What's going to happen to put me out of business?
And now the man you've been waiting for. He is the real thriller in Manila. The undisputed, undefeated, reigning, defending, pound for pound, heavyweight John, the sales machine, Rankins.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Sales Machine podcast, we've got Dale Zwizinski, a 20-plus year
Good job.
enterprise sales leader turned co-founder of Revenue Reimagined, the go-to-market agency behind $425 million in revenue, $64.5 million in funding, and $3.6 million in OPEX savings for startups across 6 countries. From leading teams of 2 to 150 to building global revenue engines from China to the UK, Dale has mastered how to take founders beyond gut feelings into scalable, predictable growth. And today we've got a real treat, and he'll be sharing how to reimagine your own revenue playbook. Welcome to the show, Dale.
Thanks, John. That's a great introduction. Actually, you almost are better than Adam, who does our introductions on our show. I'll have to tell him that.
Well, thank you very much. A little bit of enthusiasm goes a long way. That's like 20 years of going door to door.
That's a tough grind, door to door.
That's a tough grind. Our mascot's a rhino, because you got to have tough skin.
You definitely do in sales. That's one place you need some tough skin.
Yeah, and try doing it in India and Indonesia and places that would make a billy goat puke. Yeah, no, I've been around the world. That's how I started my career in sales, was door to door. I was like 7, and my brother was pushing me from behind to say, go ask them if we can mow their lawn.
Hey, whatever it takes.
Yep. So, man, you've been in the game for a long time. Go to market is, imperative to get it right. I mean, myself, guilty, got it wrong, painful, got product development wrong, painful. But let's talk about your journey, because you're not an FNG. You're not a friggin' new guy.
Nope.
And you've been a sales leader, most importantly. We'll just say 20 plus.
It's been plus.
Well, hopefully you
plus.
got the pluses and subtracted the minuses, because you actually, not only do you raise money, but you scale and you reduce cost. So how'd you get into this game?
Yeah, so actually, it's a funny story. I actually used to be a developer. So I used to write code back in university, and decided that wasn't for me, because I had to sit in a computer room all day. And while I enjoyed that part of it, it was realized my earning potential was not as much as I wanted to be. And I wanted to actually talk to other people besides machines, which is kind of coming full circle now that I think about it with ChatGPT and AI. I'm back to talking to machines. But started off as a developer, got some business work in, started doing implementation work, went to a customer in New York City in 1999, if you can remember the Y2K frenzy. I remember one of my customers saying, I was doing the implementation work, and one of my customers said, I don't want to ever see your effing salesperson in this effing office ever again. All he wants is his commission. And from that day forward, I said, there's got to be a better way for salespeople to interact with customers and to be in the front of it to help drive value for organizations. So that's kind of my entree into sales. And once I got into it, I never looked back. I just kept going.
It's funny because you've been involved in so many different organizations I'm familiar with, from Revenue Reimagined, Rev Genius, Sendoso. I know Mark Roberge, and what he did with HubSpot was ingenious.
Sales Acceleration Formula is one of the best books ever written.
Yep, him, and then Aaron Ross with Predictable Revenue, and then Jason Limpkin, just, legends. And what's funny is they have engineering backgrounds as well.
Yeah, Mark is definitely a big engineer. Aaron and I have been talking for a little while on some of his new book stuff that he's been writing. It's interesting. I think, especially nowadays, you need some design thinking. And I think as the world of AI is progressing, that design thinking is going to do salespeople really well. The people that have some technical expertise, understand some design thinking concepts, and able to take their knowledge of the industry and combine it with design thinking is where people are going to thrive. Because I think people that are just doing tasks to do tasks versus strategic thinking to do tasks and utilizing AI to do that thinking with them versus for them will be the winners in this game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The way technologies are merging and having the ability to cross-pollinate sales, marketing, customer service, customer success is really a game changer. And that's what we are doing at the Sales Machine. Literally, I've learned so much from so many different leaders around the world and how more and more everything goes back to sales as a service for me. They call it SaaS, and me, my sales framework is SaaS, sales as a service. Right? It's something I'm doing for you, not to you. And I come from the old school mindset of Zig Ziglar, the psychology of service, solving problems, and making sure people are satisfied. And that's never going to go away. Even with AI, it's going to be in service. So Revenue Reimagined, you did this for 20 years. And then how did you come about creating Revenue Reimagined and start working with startups and founders and jump into this space?
Yeah, I've did startups very early in my career, and then I went to a couple of big companies. One of my startups got bought by Fair Isaac Corporation, so that put me back into the big medium space as some Oracle. As things were changing about 3 years ago, I kind of realized that startup founders, the growth at all costs process was actually being destroyed. A lot of people were not getting money. I had founders trying to pitch me like I was an investor. I'm a CRO. I'm trying to head your sales team. I need to know what all the challenges are, what all the problems are, where your skeletons are hidden. And if you don't tell me when I'm coming in, 3 months later, I'm like, this is dead on arrival. Like we don't have enough funding. We don't have enough runway. The product's not working properly. So what I decided to do is go out on my own originally, just on my own for myself, and didn't ever think about bringing on other partners. And then Adam J and he was just coming out of a similar situation at a startup company. And he said like, scared about going on my own, but I kind of want to do it. And I was like, just do it. He found a job right away. They got a second one. And he said, hey, I have the second opportunity. I'm not sure, do you want to partner on it? And I was like, partner? I'm like, this is my own thing. And so we ended up partnering on one deal together, started a podcast. We started the Revenue Reimagined podcast first to drive pipeline. And as we got through our first deal, as we were working through our first deal, what we realized was it was more important for customers to have different points of view. So while Adam and I had the same philosophy, we had different points of view on things. And so as a solopreneur, fractional, whatever we call ourselves, we also live in a tunnel. And so we need help from other people outside of that tunnel. And so that's where Adam and I were bouncing ideas off. Then we got a second one together and we're like, let's just create Revenue Reimagined off the podcast, as we had already had a podcast. And about 6-7 months later, we brought a third partner in, Jake Rennie, who I had done work with in a past life at a startup company. And so there's 3 partners now, and we just help startups try to figure out. We built a methodology similar to your training methodology. We built a methodology called the go-to-market gap, which has 4 phases in it. And we just try to map people to the phase. We do an audit for like the first 4 weeks, and we figure out where all the skeletons are hidden, like kind of what you figure out after 3 months of working, if you go into the CRO, and then we just start working on them as we find them.
Yeah. And so what do you find in your experience with a lot of startups? And, there's a ton of AI startups, and we can get into that and the coding of AI and stuff later, because I have a software company and I've built and scaled sales teams all over the world. And I currently manage one myself, my own, right? And I'm passionate about it because I love developing leaders. I love changing lives, and I love sales as a service, right? So what do you find most often that founders get wrong when they go to market?
They think they have product market sooner than they do, and they don't document anything. So a lot of it's in their head. A lot of it is stuff that they think is easy for other people to do. And by not documenting it, you can never expect anyone else to do the work that you're doing. So I think documentation is a big one. They do a lot of things automatically. Like if I ask you, hey, John, go write down everything you did this morning before you left the house. Like you'd probably miss 5 to 6 things that you just do automatically that you don't even realize you do. Same thing with founders in startup companies.
Yeah, that's funny. I actually wrote a book called The Life Mastery Playbook. So I know exactly what I do every single day. I literally write down one goal, 3 to 5 priorities. What am I grateful for? What's my action list? Who are the game changers I can spend time with? And then after prayer, I decide it's time to rock and roll.
Yep. That's it, man.
I agree. The documentation thing is huge. Now, what I didn't know right out of the gate, because I built and scaled direct sales companies, and I learned that managing, tracking, measuring, coaching, and rewarding people is how I really transformed direct sales organizations. I mean, in several countries around the world. But then I took that psychology and that methodology, and my first attempt to put it in technology failed miserably. I didn't have a product manager. A lot of things got lost in translation. My team is here in the Philippines, and even though they speak perfect English or really good English, things get lost in translation with engineers.
Well, and
right?
That's why AI is so interesting. Going back to earlier conversation, this is why the rise of the knowledge worker is very important in the AI world, because now as a knowledge worker, you can start creating prototypes and technology and products a lot faster. What I'm seeing as a failure in this process is the robustness and the scaling and the security of it. But as a knowledge worker, I can go into Replit, I can go into, Claude Code, and I can write what I want this thing to be. And then I can say, that's not really what I was trying to say. I really wanted to do this. And I can go back and forth with it until I get it to a place where, that makes some sense to me. Then I can actually take that prototype and I can give it to a developer to actually do the work.
Yeah, I have a whole product team now. I'm pretty focused on getting it right. So not only did I screw that up, Dale, then in essence, I never really built the product to sell outside my own industry. And then I got caught up in all of this ICP and go-to-market strategy. And for me, it was deer in the headlights. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? All of this different terminology. Bottom line is I empower people with the psychology, a methodology built into technology to give them rewards, recognition, competition, compensation. So what everybody's missing is software doesn't have a soul. A lot of you guys don't understand software doesn't have a soul. So when the user's using it and it's built by engineers who don't know shit about going out in the field or having a conversation with somebody or doesn't know the triggers of driving human behavior, there's no soul. There's no soul in it. So if you want someone to use something, you've got to come from the same approach as what's in it for them, for the salesperson.
And the same thing as a founder. Like a founder can sell something, like you have passion around what you're selling. So you know exactly what you're selling. But when you go to do that, when you hire your first person, they're not going to have as much passion as you have for your own product or service or technology and all of the things that you built. So how do you take that passion that you have and install it into somebody else?
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's really not transferable. It's encourageable, but not transferable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're not as invested as you.
Yeah. And I'm bootstrapped. So that's pretty invested. I've taken my wealth over, the last 20 years and I've invested it into technology. And this is round 3.
Hey. Third time's a charm.
Hey, it better be, or else, I'll be packing your groceries. No,
That might be hard from where you are.
Yeah, exactly. No, so, I love what I do, and I love the people I work with, but I did make mistakes, and this show is all about helping people who've made mistakes, who are in the B2B space, and out of it has come some amazing wins, and even me creating Next Level Sales, which is my own framework for serving sales as a service. As an example, I mean, there's a lot of different guys out there that have wrote different books about scaling and selling. And for me, it's always about what's the next level for my customer or client? How can I always come from service? How can I serve my salesperson just to get to that next step in serving? And Next Level Sales stands for needs, economic impact, X factors, and timing. And you got to go through each step, because if you don't handle the needs and the root causes of those needs and the economic impact of why the system pays for itself, and you don't handle those X factors in the buyer's selling process and the objections before you use the timing to make your offer, then you're dead in the water.
Dead in the water.
Next Level Sales, to me, I love spin selling, but needs at the end does really not serve me. I'm right about you and your needs right up front. So it's funny. We talk about
also about value. It's also about value. So there's needs, but like, what's the return on value? So I'm giving you $1 for something or whatever currency you have, and you have to provide a value to that $1. And if the value doesn't equate to what I'm paying, then it's never going to work out.
Amen and amen. And that's where so many people get it wrong. So when I do discovery with individuals, it's all about their needs, but what is the really, not just the problem, but the root cause of the problem, and what is it costing them? And then the next step after the needs is the economic impact. Like, what is it costing you? And my goal is for our product or our service, the sales machine, is always for it to pay for itself. And I'd love to show you how it can pay for itself. So now I handle all the objection up front about pricing and nonsense, because it becomes the only obvious choice. If I can save you 75% and implement a system that's sustainable and scalable, where's the challenge? I don't know. It could be an X factor. It could be your buying process. It could be procurement. Because since I've been in this game, now I've closed CEOs to use the system, onboarded them only to be sent to some remote area in Africa to procurement, to become a certified vendor. And I'm like, what is this? I wasn't prepared for that, right? Like, I got to go through the SEC and, bring out all my company documents, bank statements, previous transactions. And I'm like, wow, this is an X factor I never dealt with. That's the next step in Next Level Sales, isn't it?
Yep. You got to find the X factor.
So I'm writing the book, Next Level Sales, how to take your clients from where they at to where they want and need to be. But you just go through the steps. So educating and empowering my people. And of course, it's always about the quality of questions you ask.
Yep. Ask better questions, get better answers.
Yeah. So, and you guys do this at Revenue Reimagined, and you do it well. So the most common problem you said is founders don't document, right? What I found my next problem was I built this system, and for initially not to go to market. I didn't even know what go to market was. For me, I was implementing it in like 5 countries around the world into direct sales companies doing advertising, promotion, selling skincare, car care, novelty items, Disney books. And so it was really to automate the rewards, recognition, competition, and compensation, because we were using Excel with about over 3,000 people and 200 offices throughout Southeast Asia. So I'm like, I don't have a life. Every Saturday, every Sunday, I'm managing these teams. I've got like 50 encoders sending me the Excel spreadsheets. It's just chaos, man.
Chaos.
So I built the system. I automated the system. Didn't work perfect. And then other people were asking me, well, why aren't you selling it? And I'm like, well, I didn't build it to
Didn't
sell
think about that.
No, I didn't think about monetizing it. Anyway, long story short, then I got involved in getting really serious about developing the software outside of our organization. But, it broke and it was not scalable and sustainable to go to market. So I had to get that right. And then when I went to market, I started hearing all this terminology of what's your ICP and, what's your go to market strategy? And I was like a deer in the headlights. Like, what are you talking about? Right.
Yeah. And I think it's not about what are we talking about on it. It's about a structure and a framework, just like you talked about with your next sales structure. So at Revenue Reimagined, we go through that 4-step process. The first part is stabilization, because a lot of companies we go into, it's like, do we have the right team? Do we have the right messaging? Do we have the right, are we selling to the right people? So like, let's stabilize it. And then we build a foundation. So you build a foundation out. And then you get to repeatability, because everyone wants to go from, once again, going through the steps, everyone wants to go from chaos that they're in now to, I want repeatable sales. And it's like, you can't get there from here. You got to go through the steps. And then once you go through repeatability, you get into scalability. And then you can find new markets, you can scale to different places, but you can't get there if you don't fix the underlying problem. And you said something interesting earlier. You said you're trying to solve the root problems. People are articulating problems that aren't the real problem. They're a symptom of the problem. And so they're fixing the symptom and like, it's still broken. And it's like, well, it's broken because you didn't really fix the real problem.
Yeah. And that's such a key. And what I didn't know, and the more I keep doing it, because we went to market last year and we signed a couple enterprise level clients, not exactly trailblazing or changing the world, but, really serving clients that, anywhere from 25,000 to over 100,000 in licensing a year. And, what we identified is the pain in the marketplace, believe it or not, is not just in direct sales. In direct sales, a lot of them are independent contractors. So the principals don't want to pay for software for a bunch of real estate agents, insurance agents, or people that are just cowboys on independent contractor agreements. And in 100%. Even real estate agents, even though they're independent or whatever, they don't want to share their leads with a system because they're afraid that the principal is going to take their leads. So it's just like a shitstorm of out there of managing, tracking, and measuring these individuals in an organization. So what we found out was there's a hole in the market, because the more we talked about increasing sales, driving performance, and reducing cost for companies, the more it started to resonate with a whole new audience. And so we started figuring out that manufacturing or distribution companies, it's called modern trade, a lot of them don't even they might have an ERP system, but they have no front of the house system for the salespeople, no front of the house system for customer success. A lot of them are just using encoders, Excel. They're using CSV files to manage all of the chaos, and their data is, 5 weeks out, 6 weeks out. So we identified that we can replace all of those, and in as little as 15 minutes, give you real-time data. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, I can save them 75% and the system pays for itself. But now the more I listen to Revenue Reimagined, right? And the more I focus on learning outside my own box, because I love to get out of my own way, is that even though I'm going to market with manufacturing distribution companies doing over $5 million in sales, and they have to have field agents, because I have business intelligence for the C-suite, I have operational intelligence for the operations, and then I have a field sales app that gives you intelligence of boots on the ground, right? So by being able to do that, I can transform an organization. Whereas before, I was just hitting different pain points. Make sense?
Yeah, you gotta connect the dots, especially nowadays. Even if you're fixing a symptom of the problem, there's an underlying problem. And if you go to market from the message, the customer journey or the buyer's journey, from the beginning of when they understand your company to the time you deliver value, that whole piece has to be connected. Because if you're not connected from the start to the finish, you won't derive the entire value. So if they're going to renew or expand, it won't happen, because CS needs to be part of that motion and understand what's happening from the time they've found your company to the time we've interacted with them in the sales motion to the time that they're actually getting to deliver value. Like I like to say sales is only the promise to deliver value. We actually have the easy part. Then people have to go deliver the value. And whether that's a product, service, whatever that is, if you don't deliver the value that we've promised in the sales cycle, we've just spent a lot of money for no reason.
Yeah. And speaking of spending a lot of money, when you go to market, you talked about being repeatable and scalable. How do you do that when you have a limited budget and you haven't raised money?
It's not about raising money. It's about, do you have the right people you're selling to? Does it resonate with them? And are you delivering that value when they come into your funnel? Like the challenge, especially now, the challenge a lot of founders are having is there's zero awareness. So they're building this sales engine with zero awareness. So they're expecting BDRs or account executives to get the awareness. And what I tell founders is that can happen, but it's going to take you 18 months. You need some kind of marketing engine on the front of this thing so people can find the sales machine. You're doing it, a bit ad hoc by the podcast. So you have the podcast, you're building awareness through your conversations with people, but some people don't do any of it. They don't do any LinkedIn. They don't do any YouTube. Like Adam and I started the company with a podcast to generate awareness for our company. So yes, we don't have a big marketing engine, but once you get some of the people into your funnel and you are successful and you drive value, they recommend you to other people. So that recommendation is big. And then you got to scale up from there. So one of the things we're doing right now is figuring out how to scale past where we are. It's as a go-to-market agency, and I'm not sure I like that agency term, but as an agency, we have to also figure out how to scale. Like we're solving and we've built the foundation, but we're not at repeatability. Like we got to get to repeatability in our own motion. So we had to do the same things that we're talking about with our customers. Like last week, we were just in Utah, a quarterly business meeting. We had an AI event that we were running, an AI go-to-market. And then we spent 2.5 days just going through everything in our business, where we were successful, where we need some work on it. And then we just start building the plan around it.
Yeah, I love that because, strategic planning allows you to actually create sustainability rather than just winging it, right? Folks, if you're enjoying this episode and you're picking up what I'm putting down and what the guests are actually putting out there, do me a favor, like and comment what you liked about the episode, or even comment what would you like to hear, what topics would you like to hear in the future, because believe me, it matters. I read absolutely every single one of them, and I want to bring you more and more value to help companies scale so that we can grow this podcast to make a bigger difference. Now let's get back to the show.
You'll get to repeatability if you have a solid foundation and you're getting momentum. That's why I always tell a lot of founders, like you may not be at repeatability, but are you getting momentum? Can you forecast accurately? Can you say when someone's coming into your pipeline, you have a process that they follow and you understand that process and there's some kind of like momentum happening in that process? Because we can get to repeatability from momentum. Without momentum, you can get no repeatability.
Yeah, exactly. And sustainability comes from systems. What's your experience with sustainability and not just at Revenue Reimagined, but with sustainability based on systems you've built? And do you agree with that statement?
Well, you got to get to repeatability to become scalable or sustainable. Like when you get past repeatability, there's a motion of like, how do I grow to my next level? So like I'm not a big proponent of just being sustainable. I want to scale and I want to find and break the next thing. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we want to break things so that we can then figure out what's broken in them. Because I think there's a small percentage of people that have gone through a process that they're like overnight successes, right? But they've spent 20 years of pain and failures and things that have happened. And I think you only grow out of those parts because if you're successful right away, like you don't understand what was broken. And I think a lot of times people get into like, if you're a true entrepreneur, you're always trying to put yourself out of business. You're waking up every morning and saying, who's going to put me out of business? What's going to happen to put me out of business? And you're trying to figure out solutions for that problem.
In saying that, so when can a founder tell when they've hit like the ceiling of founder-led sales? And what do you think is the biggest difference between, and this can just be terminology, founder-led sales and product-led growth?
Yeah. So product-led growth is a little different. It's like someone can go buy something off of your website or like an e-commerce site. Founder-led to me is where you get to a top where you cannot run the business because you're in sales all the time. You have to be the one that's finding leads or closing business or getting in through the funnel. And when you get to a place where your business cannot sustainably run on that motion because engineering is breaking or your customers are churning or they're having problems, like you've outgrown founder-led sales. And so there's a founder that I've worked with that was in the AI tech space. He ended up getting up to like 1.4 million in ARR and realizing like he was trying to bring people on board, but he knew all the motion. So you have to like, once again, document, break it down to its smallest pieces so you can feed it to new people coming into your organization. It wasn't product problems, but not as many people are saying, because when you're first bringing customers on, you're bringing on everybody. You're like, anyone that wants to come say hi to me, like I'm going to bring you on. I'm going to give you some free stuff. I'm going to let you try the product. And then all of a sudden, like no one's spending money like they should be spending it. And you're spending money on the back end to build the products. I think when you're getting into that motion, you got to start breaking off and find one or two people that you can trust, that you can mentor through that process, get them into like that passion. There's a reason why you started the company. What was that passion? How do you instill that passion into the others that are coming into the organization?
Because it becomes a tipping point, right? And what a breath of fresh air that tipping point must be.
It does feel good, but it's a lot of work to get there.
Tell me about some of your case studies of how you guys have Revenue Reimagined. Have you ever went into an organization and the founder or the organization was challenged with sales, but it wasn't actually a sales problem? It was more of a go-to-market problem?
I mean, all of our customers to us, like everything's going well. Like they're like, no one comes to us and is like, this is the best things ever. And like, we just need you to like add fuel to the fire. We're usually going in there at the stabilization mode. So we do the audit. And they're the same challenges, whether you're $1 million company or $100 million company. I want more top of funnel. I want to close faster. I want bigger sales. Like these are all These are all things that people are trying to get to. Some are just having more problems than others. So some of it is a technology thing. Like you're on like an old version of some CRM, or you're not leveraging some of the latest technology to enable your reps to do more stuff, or you haven't really put a methodology in place, or you don't have the awareness. So you're trying to get your sales reps and BDRs to call 8,000 people a day and spam them with 8,000 emails that were generated from ChatGPT. And they're like, your customers like, this complete bullshit. Like, don't ever call me again. Right. And then we're in customers where they're trying to send emails out on a cadence through the main domain versus like having like set up separate domains to send emails out. So like they're getting their main domain blocked and now investors can't get to them. So it's a myriad of things, but it's always trying to figure out top priorities. Our engagements, could last from 6 months to a year, depending on how long people need. And it's identifying the challenges that we can solve right away to start moving, like identifying where they are. Most of them are in stabilization. How do we get the foundation and getting into repeatability so that they can start scaling their revenue up and to the right?
Do you find that a lot of them just get their ideal client profile wrong, and or they're just not tapping enough industries? Because I think a lot of times people get caught up in the ICP when in actuality, tell me Salesforce's ICP. Tell me HubSpot's ICP. Go ahead.
There's two problems.
Tell me your marketing course. Who's Microsoft's ICP?
The problem actually is two-part. One is they built an ICP like 2 years ago when they first were starting the company, and they haven't changed it. Like they haven't reviewed it. They haven't looked at it. We actually tell our customers, look at your ICP every 3 months. And you can do that now with AI. So there's a lot of AI stuff that you can do to help you. The second part is actually, I think people widen it too far, the ICP. So how do you narrow your ICP into something that's digestible to get that momentum, to get to repeatability? Because everyone's like, you get investors. What's your total addressable market? And I'm like, fuck total addressable market. It's complete fallacy. Like, what's your sellable addressable market and what's your serviceable addressable market? Let's focus on those two things and let's figure out how to get momentum, get some wins, get learnings from the market, get learnings from what people are really wanting. Like us as founders, we sit there and believe like our product or service is the best thing since sliced bread. But when you push it out to the market and the market's like, well, I don't know about this and this may need to change and I don't know about that. And you as a founder are like, no, this is the way it should be. This is the way I built it. And they're like, yeah, but I don't give a shit about your pink widget. Like I wanted a blue widget. And you're like, but it's supposed to be pink. They're like, no, I want blue. So who wins? The customer. They had the money. So you make a blue widget.
Amen and amen. Because we drink our own Kool-Aid, right? And, I don't like Kool-Aid. I like wine. And I also like my coffee. And the customer's right no matter what you think.
I don't know if they're always right. I think there's a place where asking better questions get better answers because some customers may come off tough. But when you ask them like, okay, why did you want the blue widget? And they're like, because we've always had a blue widget. And it's like, well, the pink widget actually will make you more money. Well, tell me how the pink widget will make me more money. Well, XYZ. Oh, well, maybe I want the pink widget. Like you can push back on customers. You just got to figure out where to push back on customers.
Yeah. I always like saying, I think there's a better question to ask when that scenario comes up, because ultimately, and this is where I got confused. I'm like, who doesn't want to increase their sales, have better performance, and reduce their costs?
Yeah, but everybody says that to people, right? So like you're pushing a rock up a hill sometimes, and you also have changing costs. You have like what they're doing today versus what you're trying to get them to do tomorrow. It's always the change management side of it that is the tough part.
Yeah, especially with enterprise sales, right? Because it's a lot to move. Have you ever had any scenarios where you had to go in and do that? And what was your experience doing it?
In terms of like moving the enterprise?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have a couple of fairly large customers. I think the first couple months can be a little dicey, but once you earn trust at the senior levels, then you can start moving Titanics much quicker. They never move as fast as you want them to move, by the way. Like there's always an undercurrent. So as you're moving ships, like there's currents and winds that are happening, and you just have to identify where those currents and winds are. And for us coming in, you have to identify them very quickly and make sure that because it could be that we have to change people in the organization. It could be that we have to hire new people. Like everything that happens could have a consequence to it. And so they have a lot of history and you have a month of history. And you have to balance that with like, how do you generate value fast enough for them to see it? People want value instantly today. Hey, you've run a sales organization. You should be able to close business in 2 months. Okay, but your sales cycle is 8 months long. How am I closing business in 2 months? The math does not math here.
Yeah, the math does not math. The math does not map out. Yeah, I get it. And I see that because I work with other organizations as well as my own. And yeah, when you go to market, the sales cycle, there's a lot of different methodologies out there about the seller's journey and then the buyer's journey. But there's buyer's process at different companies too, and they have to follow their process. It's not about the seller.
Yeah, it's all about the buying journey. Like no one gives a shit about your sales process. Just to let you know, like you don't care. Your sales process is for you. It's really the buying journey. The buyer's journey is the most important. And the challenge that most salespeople have, they don't realize, is even if you bucket them into pharmaceutical or healthcare or like financial services, even in those segments, like their buying journey is different. You have procurement in one, you don't have procurement in another. When I usually gave prices to everybody, especially if I knew procurement was involved, like, here's your price. How much is procurement going to want to lop off my head? 10%? Okay, your price is now 10% higher. Because you just know, like you just get into the motion of what that looks like.
It's really real world experience when you get into that, because I've spent my whole life in sales in one way or another. And from door to door to selling one-on-one, one-on-many, selling from the stage, actually selling consulting and working with international clients all over the world and helping them scale their teams. And then to boardrooms, and selling in a boardroom is a lot different when there's 5 decision makers than one.
Yep.
And then
100%.
even though you thought you had the sale from a CEO, and then I got sent into procurement, and I'm like, this is interesting, but I knew I needed to make him the hero of the story.
There's individual wins and there's organization wins. You have to understand both of those levels to be successful, especially in enterprise sales. Small sales, even mid-sized deals are less of that world. If you get into enterprise sales, which is where I sold for, like when I carried a bag, when you're in that space, you have to know the individual win and the organization win. And maybe the individual win for whoever you're selling to. Like it could be if you're selling to the VP of sales and the CEO is his boss, then you have to know what both of those wins are.
Yeah. And if you don't, and that's what I call X factors. And when I train my people, and even when I observe what I'm doing, when I'm present and talking to individuals, I want to know those X factors because I want to know I can serve them. And it's a win for not just them, but the whole organization, because you can end up in a minefield.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
So now you're helping companies go to market, and you have your own psychology and methodology for doing that. And I love what you're doing.
Common sense.
Yeah, that's very uncommon. Nowadays, the highest level of sense is actually uncommon sense, which is not very common. And it's true. Like you said, when you jump into an organization, there are minefields and there's undercurrents and different winds. So you've really got to navigate until you earn that trust, right? And then once you earn that trust, you have to show the value. But the values actually has to be given up front, and that's what's going to establish the trust. And now we're moving into a whole new arena with AI and go to market with AI, and it's a big buzzword. How has AI changed the SaaS industry based on your knowledge, and how important is it for your solution to have it?
AI has changed the industry humongously. I mean, I don't think we even understand where it's scratching the surface. And unfortunately, it's going to get worse before it gets better because people are in an experimental stage. They're experimenting in a lot of stuff. That experimentation is going to cost people their jobs. It's going to cost people money. It's going to cost people a lot of things because they haven't tried it or played with it enough. And they're taking people at their words for it. So a lot of things that I've been working on with our clients right now is building out AI charters or AI, like, let's get to the top level. Let's build a strategy around this. And let's find out in the organization, not just in go to market, but all of the charter across the organization needs to be aligned. So if it's operations, if it's finance, if it's recruiting, if it's go to market, eventually that data is shared across the organization. So the recruiting is just as important to go to market as the operations is to go to market. And so we can't silo these things anymore. We actually need to open it up and make sure what we're driving in the AI world will have a return on your investment. And I think right now there's not a lot of feeling or thought process around that. I've been telling a lot of people, take a step back. Let's build that charter out. Let's find out what the strategy looks like. Then just like we would in any audit, let's go after the lowest hanging fruit to get success.
Yeah. And I love how you've thought that through. And I love the charter idea. And you guys offer that as a service in your consultancy as well?
Yeah. Yep. We just started. Actually, that was part of what our event was in Utah. To start talking to people about the charter. Off of the charter, go-to-market is a very low-hanging fruit for AI right now because ICP, buying persona value proposition, what you were just talking about, is what we call the GTM foundations. Like you need those things. And by the way, those things will change every 3 months. So you need a system because to sit down and do that work, I just did it with a customer of ours. Like to do the work, we did 3 or 4 workshops before having an on-site workshop. And that took the CEO, the head of people, the head of sales, the head of marketing, and the chairman of the board. And so we all did that work, and that was a very expensive workshop. So once you have the inputs for that workshop, now you can just rerun it. If I have a new competitor, if I have a new feature, functionality, if I have a new market, I can just feed that back into the engine. And it can start spitting out, here's a new ICP, or here's an adjusted ICP, adjusted buying persona, adjusted value proposition. The people that can do that much faster, we'll be much more successful in the world.
Yeah. And so when you build out the charter, we were talking earlier about building AI into your product and or building it right from the beginning. So my experience is, and I've had some AI architects that I've worked with and built out a couple agentic AIs for empowering my sales team so that, you know, they can take the next level framework. And whenever they got on a call, we can do the note taker and we can evaluate. All right, did you do a proper discovery? When I mean proper, did you ask the right questions? And did you pivot the conversation back to a solution? As an example, what has been your experience? And is it different every single time? If I've already built a technology, do I start over or do I just build in agentic AI agents to accommodate it?
Good question. If your framework allows it. I also think like I wouldn't just build AI because it's some buzzword. I would build AI that made sense to my customer. Like people are building AI because it's a buzzword thing, but like, is it really providing value? Do your customers want it? Do they use it? Like, why would you put it in there if it doesn't, like, if they're not going to see value out of it? Just to say you have AI in your product. Okay. I mean, that's a go-to-market strategy, I guess. So I think, you know, what parts of your product are good candidates for AI? Why would you deliver it in AI? And are we really delivering AI or are we just delivering a workflow engine behind the scenes that's not really AI? Like a lot of these AI agentic agents are just workflow navigation engines. I mean, AI has been around for ages. We're just now starting to play around with it because we think it's the latest thing. It's been around for a long period of time. There's been workflow engines, NLP. There's been a lot of these engines in place, and there are definitely places for agentic agents. The question is, are you building AI or are you just building orchestration?
Yeah. So for me, it's to automate a lot of redundant tasks for sales, marketing, and customer service. So the more that I can automate, the more I eliminate costs and reduce the cost.
But are you automating? So are you using the data to make better decisions or are you just pulling data from one place to another?
As an example, I have 100 sales agents, right? So if I want to evaluate how effective they are on their calls, the SDRs, I need to know what are the results of those calls and or what are the top 10 doing that the bottom 90 are not doing. And then I can pull out best practices and I can use a data scientist to wrap around what are the best practices of the top 10% that the other 90% aren't doing. And then once I incorporate the best practices, then I hold training with the other 90% and I raise the waterline of all of my SDRs. And as long as they're coming from service, I'm not a believer that you cannot develop people. I know, and I have developed people from average to really, really, really good. And yeah, it's hard to duplicate rock stars, but you know what? The world doesn't run with rock stars. If you want to scale an organization, you got to keep it simple and rise the waterline of everybody. So that's how I'm using AI.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you're not just moving data, you're making decisions and you're enabling the system to make decisions based on the data that you have versus like, I'm just moving this message to this place and asking this person to do this thing. You're making sure that and then I think you have to continue to run it on like, what are people saying? Are they reactive? Are they getting the information? And then you put that back into the engine and say, like, how can even my top 10% be more effective? What are my top 10% missing that we can make them better? Because they're probably more willing to learn as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe it's a product thing, right? Maybe it's a product thing. Maybe someone doesn't care about your purple widget anymore. And you have to create some other widget. So.
Well, if you're going to build AI, you got to do it right from the beginning. What do you mean by that specifically?
I think you have to articulate why you're building, like what's the reason to build it? And then what's the value that you're building it for? There's a great company to look at called Swan. They're out of Israel and I'm actually meeting up with the founder at Inbound tomorrow and they have a 3-person company that out of the first 3 months or something like that, they got to $30,000 in MRR in like 3 months. Their concept is, can we generate an autonomous business with 3 people? How much revenue can we generate per person working at the company. Can we get to a $30 million company with 3 people, like creating as a $10 million per person AI? Because they built the company from the start with AI.
And that's a great question to ask because your brain can find answers.
Yeah, maybe. I think we limit ourselves in our brains by saying that's impossible, but we don't know what's possible until we allow people to get to the next level. And it's harder when you have a product that you're trying to retrofit stuff into. Like Salesforce. Okay. Salesforce is a product. The framework was built in 1997. It's very difficult for them to rebuild the infrastructure of their product. They put Lightning on, they bought a bunch of products. It's a CRM. It's a piece of junk. It's so hard to manage. It's so hard, like configure. Even HubSpot's a partner of ours. We do a lot of work with HubSpot. Most of our customers are on HubSpot, much easier to manage, much easier to configure, but there's still stuff in HubSpot that is legacy that can get old. And so when you have old product, you just have tech debt from a while ago. When you're starting up brand new, you can actually, start it from the ground up with a different mentality. It takes one person to run the mile in their 4 minutes. Then everyone can run the mile in their 4 minutes.
Yeah. And I found that, Salesforce is more of a marketplace where you buy other stuff because the CRM is, legacy and old and clunky and not user friendly.
So why buy it? It's like so expensive.
How do people work with you either directly or is it through the agency?
Yeah, through Revenue Reimagined. We actually have a free go-to-market maturity assessment, foundations.revenuereimagined.com. We may be changing that to maturity.revenuereimagined.com, but there's a maturity model. You can go and put in your data. We can tell you where you fall in the maturity model. You get a report out. There's also a place where we'll auto-generate your go-to-market ICP buying persona value proposition. If you go to revenuereimagined.com/GTM gap, there's a messenger. You can put in your name, your website, and we'll generate a ICP for you, buying persona value proposition, all through AI. So we'll run it through our engine, and then we come out. Know that it's just this is a sample of what the market sees you as because it's taking public data off your website. So the more information you give the system, the better articulation of the ICP buying persona value proposition you'll have. So we work with customers after that to say, okay, now give me this. Okay, now give me that. And watch how it changes your ICP into a more narrow place where you can actually sell into.
Man, you've been amazing. Thank you, Dale, for your time. This has been enlightening. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to reimagine your revenue, go to Revenue Reimagined and let them help you do the work. I'll definitely be reaching out to you, Dale, and go through the assessments with my team. Any way we can collaborate or cooperate, I'd love to find a way to work with you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate your time, man.
All right, man. You take care. Have a great night.
Bye.
That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for joining me today. And if you got value from this episode, do me a favor. Like, subscribe, and refer a friend. And if you want even more value, go to thesalesmachine.com, click on resources, and there's tons of resources there to increase profits and drive performance in your business. Right on, come on.